Could the wisdom of ancient rulers still guide us today? What might they think of our modern management practices? In the summer of 525 BCE, as the Persian army advanced across the Egyptian desert toward Memphis, Pharaoh Psamtik III paced nervously in his palace. He had inherited the throne just months earlier from his father Amasis, and now faced the military genius Cambyses II of Persia. The pharaoh, adhering to traditions established over 2 millennia of Egyptian rule, consulted the priests of Amun and relied on the divine authority that had sustained 26 dynasties before him. The battle that followed near Pelusium ended with decisive Persian victory. Within months, Egypt, independent for over 1,500 years, became a Persian satrapy. Psamtik III was initially spared, but executed after a failed rebellion attempt. The Egyptian system of divine kingship, for all its cultural achievements and monumental architecture, had failed to adapt. As we examine this moment, and many similar pivotal leadership failures throughout history, an intriguing question emerges: how would the great rulers of antiquity, who commanded empires through divine authority, military might, and absolute power, react to the collaborative, data-driven, and democratic leadership approaches that define the most successful organizations today? Emperor Qin Shi Huang, who unified China in 221 BCE and built both the Great Wall and the Terracotta Army, would likely be perplexed by modern servant leadership concepts. His brutal legalist philosophy standardized weights, measures, currency, and even writing across China, but at tremendous human cost. His centralized authority left no room for input from subordinates. The famous incident where he buried 460 Confucian scholars alive in 212 BCE for possessing forbidden books demonstrates his approach to dissenting viewpoints. The emperor requires absolute obedience, his prime minister Li Sai declared after the execution of a minister who disagreed with imperial policy. Heaven has but one sun, earth has but one emperor. Yet the Qin dynasty collapsed just 4 years after Qin Shi Huang's death in 210 BCE, suggesting the limitations of leadership through fear and absolute control. By contrast, Augustus Caesar, who ruled Rome from 27 BCE until 14 CE, might find more familiar elements in modern governance. After decades of civil war, Augustus established what historians call the Principate, maintaining republican institutions while holding ultimate power. This system, balancing authority with delegation, allowed Rome to prosper for 2 centuries. Augustus understood what modern leadership experts call stakeholder management. He kept the Senate functioning, though with reduced power, maintained the appearance of traditional offices, distributed grain to Roman citizens, and established the Praetorian Guard. His famous last words, "Have I played the part well? Then applaud as I exit," reveal his understanding that leadership is partly performance. But even Augustus would be startled by modern concepts like 360-degree feedback or flattened organizational hierarchies. In 52 CE, nearly 4 decades after Augustus died, a very different leader named Aegisthus Sardus began his service as a Roman procurator in Judea. Historical records reveal that Sardus pioneered an unusual approach to governance for his era. Rather than simply imposing Roman rule through military force, he established what might be recognized today as an early stakeholder consultation process. Sardus regularly met with local Jewish religious authorities, Roman merchants, and even representatives from farming communities. While maintaining Roman authority, he created a council of advisors from different social classes, something unprecedented in provincial administration. The Romans must rule, but need not rule blindly, Sardus reportedly told the governor of Syria. His methods reduced tax revolts and increased provincial productivity by 15% according to imperial records. When Emperor Nero learned of these methods in 57 CE, he initially dismissed them as dangerous coddling of subjects. Yet the stability of Judea during Sardus' tenure, in a region notorious for rebellion, eventually convinced imperial authorities to permit his experiments to continue. While Sardus' approach foreshadowed modern collaborative leadership, most ancient rulers would find today's emphasis on emotional intelligence and psychological safety profoundly unsettling. Consider Ashurbanipal, the last great king of the Neo-Assyrian Empire, 668 to 627 BCE. His palace reliefs at Nineveh depict him personally blinding captives and tearing out tongues. These were not simply records of cruelty, but deliberate communication strategy. Assyrian governance relied on terrorizing subject populations into compliance. I flayed as many nobles as had rebelled against me and draped their skins over the pile of corpses, reads one of Ashurbanipal's royal inscriptions. I burned many captives. I captured many troops alive, I cut off some their arms and hands, I cut off others their noses, ears, and extremities. I gouged out the eyes of many troops. Ashurbanipal's empire collapsed shortly after his death, as territories that feared rather than respected Assyrian rule seized the opportunity to rebel. The sophisticated bureaucracy of ancient China provides interesting contrasts. During the Han Dynasty, 206 BCE, 220 CE, Emperor Wu established an imperial academy in 124 BCE that trained civil servants through rigorous examinations. This meritocratic system, the first of its kind, selected officials based on knowledge rather than noble birth. The system evolved over subsequent dynasties into China's famous examination system, which lasted until 1905. Civil service examinations tested candidates on Confucian texts, calligraphy, and composition. While incredibly rigid by modern standards, this approach represented a significant innovation in governance, prioritizing competence over birthright. Emperor Wu might appreciate modern leadership development programs, though he would likely be bewildered by concepts like work-life balance or employee wellness initiatives. Perhaps no ancient ruler would better understand modern strategic thinking than Chandragupta Maurya, founder of India's Mauryan Empire in 322 BCE. Guided by his advisor Kautilya, also called Chanakya, author of the Arthashastra, an ancient manual of statecraft, Chandragupta employed sophisticated approaches to governance, intelligence gathering, and economic policy. The Arthashastra details everything from tax administration to espionage networks to psychological warfare. It outlines a comprehensive system of governance recognizable to modern strategists. The king shall provide the orphans, the aged, the infirm, the afflicted, and the helpless with maintenance, Kautilya wrote, describing an early welfare system. He shall also provide subsistence to helpless women when they are carrying and also to the children they give birth to. The text also advises maintaining multiple advisory councils with specialists in different domains, a structure not unlike modern executive leadership teams. Kautilya understood the value of diverse perspectives. In the happiness of his subjects lies the king's happiness, in their welfare his welfare. Yet even this sophisticated approach maintained absolute royal authority. No ancient king would comprehend modern concepts like servant leadership, where authority flows upward from employees to leaders who facilitate rather than command. King Hammurabi, who ruled Babylon from 1792 to 1750 BCE, might better understand modern regulatory frameworks and governance through established principles. His famous legal code, one of humanity's earliest written legal systems, covered everything from contracts to property rights to personal injury. Carved on a 7-foot stone stele, the Code of Hammurabi established consistent rules intended to apply to all. To bring about the rule of righteousness in the land, begins the code's prologue, so that the strong should not harm the weak. This principle of protecting vulnerable members of society through consistent application of law remains fundamental to modern governance. Yet Hammurabi would likely be troubled by modern democratic checks on executive power and employee rights movements. In 343 BCE, the Persian Empire, then ruled by Artaxerxes III, faced rebellion in Egypt led by Pharaoh Nectanebo II. The Persian king employed a Greek general named Mentor of Rhodes to help subdue the uprising. Mentor introduced an innovation shocking to the hierarchical Persian military. He consulted extensively with common soldiers about Egyptian terrain, fortifications, and tactics. The common man who walks the ground knows more of it than the noble who rides above it, Mentor reportedly explained to skeptical Persian commanders. His approach proved effective. Egypt fell to the Persian forces, and Mentor's tactical innovations earned him governorship of the Asian coast. Yet even this early experiment in collaborative military strategy existed within an absolute authority structure that would find modern distributed leadership models alien. Another compelling case study comes from Rome in 81 BCE, when dictator Lucius Cornelius Sulla implemented organizational reforms that influence governance to this day. After seizing power through civil war, Sulla codified the cursus honorum, the sequence of public offices a politician should hold, and expanded the Senate from 300 to 600 members. Most significantly, Sulla reformed Rome's legal system by creating specialized courts, questiones perpetui, for different types of cases. This organizational innovation improved efficiency and established expertise in specific legal domains. Modern corporate structures with specialized departments would be comprehensible to Sulla, though he would likely find modern HR policies and worker protections bewildering. By 509 BCE, Rome had already made its most profound contribution to governance by establishing the Republic after overthrowing its last king, Tarquin the Proud. The Roman system's defining feature was its distribution of power among different officials and bodies: 2 consuls with executive authority who served just 1 year, the Senate as an advisory body, and various assemblies representing citizens. The Republic's checks and balances directly influenced modern democratic systems, including the American Constitution. Yet even Republican Rome maintained rigid social hierarchies that would find modern workplace equality revolutionary. Julia Zephora, a wealthy Roman merchant operating in Alexandria around 120 CE, provides a rare example of female leadership in antiquity. Historical records show she owned multiple trading vessels moving goods between Egypt, Greece, and Rome. Unlike most women of her era, Zephora built a commercial organization with both male and female subordinates. Papyri discovered in the 1960s reveal that Zephora developed innovative management techniques, including profit sharing with ship captains and performance incentives for warehouse managers. These approaches, radical for her time, improved efficiency in her commercial operations. "Let each be rewarded according to what they have truly earned," reads one fragmentary business document bearing her seal. This meritocratic principle anticipates modern performance management systems by nearly 2 millennia. When Emperor Hadrian visited Alexandria in 130 CE, he reportedly consulted with Zephora on trade policy, an extraordinary recognition of a woman's expertise in the ancient world. While Zephora's methods were progressive for her era, they operated within social structures that accepted slavery and vast inequality as normal. Perhaps the most sophisticated ancient leadership system emerged in Venice, beginning in the late 7th century CE. To prevent any single family from dominating, the Venetians developed an elaborate selection process for their head of state, the Doge. This process, finalized in 1268, involved multiple rounds of selection combining random chance and deliberative voting. Venetian governance, with its Great Council, Senate, Council of 10, and other bodies, distributed authority across multiple institutions. The Doge, while serving for life, faced significant constraints on his power. This complex system helped Venice maintain independence and prosperity for over a millennium until Napoleon ended the Republic in 1797. The Venetian system, with its institutional checks on executive authority, most closely anticipates modern corporate governance with boards of directors providing oversight of executives. Yet even Venice maintained strict class distinctions that would find modern workplace democracy alien. As we examine these historical cases, clear patterns emerge. Ancient leadership typically emphasized: 1. Centralized authority flowing from divine or noble status. 2. Leadership through fear and respect rather than collaboration. 3. Decision-making concentrated among elites rather than distributed. 4. Limited feedback mechanisms for subordinates. 5. Rigid social hierarchies determining advancement opportunities. 6. Strategic thinking often focused on military conquest rather than market competition. 7. Performance measured through territorial expansion rather than revenue growth. 8. Innovation driven by royal patronage rather than entrepreneurial initiative. Modern leadership, by contrast, increasingly emphasizes: 1. Distributed authority based on expertise and performance. 2. Leadership through inspiration and facilitation. 3. Collaborative decision-making incorporating diverse perspectives. 4. Regular feedback loops with 360-degree evaluation. 5. Meritocratic advancement based on skills and results. 6. Strategic thinking focused on market positioning and competitive advantage. 7. Performance measured through financial metrics and stakeholder value. 8. Innovation driven by entrepreneurial initiative and organizational learning. What lessons can we draw from these contrasts? First, leadership evolves to address the challenges of its era. Divine kingship made sense in agricultural societies dependent on predictable irrigation and harvest cycles. Modern knowledge economies require more flexible, collaborative approaches to harness human creativity. Second, power structures tend to resist change until forced by crisis. The fall of dynasties, empires, and republics throughout history demonstrates that leadership systems that fail to adapt eventually collapse. Third, elements of ancient wisdom remain relevant. Cyrus the Great of Persia, 600 to 530 BCE, practiced religious tolerance, respected local customs in conquered territories, and freed the Jews from Babylonian captivity, understanding that sustainable rule requires respecting cultural differences. "I will never impose my faith on any people," Cyrus declared, as recorded in the Cyrus Cylinder from 539 BCE, one of humanity's earliest documents advocating religious freedom. Modern leaders still grapple with balancing organizational culture against diverse perspectives. Fourth, human psychology changes more slowly than technology or social structures. The fundamental challenges of motivating people, resolving conflicts, and making decisions under uncertainty would be recognizable to ancient rulers, though their approaches differed dramatically. Finally, history reveals that leadership systems reflect deeper societal values. Ancient societies that accepted slavery, human sacrifice, or rigid class structures produced leadership models aligned with those values. Modern emphasis on democratic governance, human rights, and individual dignity similarly shapes our leadership ideals. If we could transport Augustus, Ashurbanipal, or Qin Shi Huang to observe a modern executive leadership team meeting, with its PowerPoint presentations, data analytics, collaborative problem-solving, and diversity initiatives, they would likely be shocked by both the methods and underlying assumptions about human potential. Yet they might also recognize familiar challenges, maintaining organizational cohesion, developing strategy amid uncertainty, motivating performance, and leaving a lasting legacy. The fundamental questions of leadership transcend time even as our approaches continue to evolve. In that evolution lies both our greatest hope and most profound responsibility to build upon history's lessons while creating leadership models worthy of humanity's future.